I think, and I'm not really sure about this, that I like the Man City arc of Blue Lock more than the average fan does. It's one of my favorites, but when I was reading, I was honestly kinda confused at what the author, Kaneshiro, was cooking with the character of Yukimiya. He was always kinda cool, but he was ultimately just in the background the whole time. But now he's getting set up in the Manchine match, and it looks like he's gonna do something, talking about how he'll die for his ideals, and then he just does nothing for 20 chapters. Bro realized he was not built for this. But then I guess I shouldn't have doubted the man, as Kaneshiro turns around and cooks up one of the best character arcs I've ever seen. And that's all thanks to Kaneshiro taking some pretty interesting inspirations from, and commentary of, the man, the myth, the legend, Soren Kierkegaard. If you're a nerd, you'd understand the fanfare. So, the Man City arc of Blue Lock is more or less about 4 things: God, ideals, logic, and interpersonal relationships, which is why it's such a genius idea on Kaneshiro's part, as Kierkegaard's writing involves all of these things. The first 3 will be pretty obvious soon enough as explained, but that 4th one, you're gonna need the whole video for. Quick word though, I'm not like an expert on Kierkegaard, so sorry if I mess up or oversimplify anything. It's gonna be like 20 minutes max, and I'm just a high schooler. Wait, I graduated. Wait, fuck, I'm an adult now. Holy shit. So, Kierkegaard believes there are 4, more like 3.5 stages of life. Starting with that half stage that's kinda sorta there, and that is the unawakened. NPC, sheeple, whatever you want to call them. The people that follow the crowd, don't think for themselves much. Past that we have the aesthetic. The aesthetic is basically unga bunga monkey brains. They do whatever they want, whenever they want, with no thought or concern for anything, including this really funny thing called long-term planning. Now, past that again, we have the ethical. Basically, when you grow up, eventually you realize endless freedom is actually more of a hindrance than a help for your goal. And so one adopts responsibility and specific roles within their pre-built structure, say a father or an employee at a business. They become more selfless in a way. Now, you may have figured out that these two aren't linear. People don't wake up one day and go, I am now a responsible adult. No, responsible people may indulge themselves, and indulgent people aren't completely brain dead. And that's why that first phase is kinda not there. It's because it's more like a dysfunctional mismatch, flipping between the two in all the worst ways. And it's that dysfunctional match that Kierkegaard was trying to solve. Let's take the most common example. The high school graduate who is torn between majoring in what they're passionate about and what is a stable career choice their family accepts. Do I want to be a dumbass that does what I hate? Or do I want to be a dumbass that takes a liberal arts major? At this point, they become unable to tell what they should logically do in that situation, and thus they end up following the crowd and just taking gen ed. If you're fully in the aesthetic, you have no identity, just raw carnal instinct. And likewise, if you're fully in the ethical, you also have no identity of your own, only living by the status quo. The question then that Kierkegaard is asking is, how do we be human? How do we have an identity when it seems we can't in this framework that he's created? Kierkegaard then offers his grand solution. Shut up and stop being a bitch. Well, not that exactly, but more or less. Basically he said that we can never be fully sure, using logic alone, what to do. So instead, you may have to just take a leap of faith and follow your ideals, even if you're not fully sure in them. To cast aside logic for the sake of action. Now, while faith alone is fine, Kierkegaard concluded that if our doubt is inherently worldly about worldly things, then our faith must be from outside this world, from outside this realm of existence. As you've probably figured out by now, he's talking about God here. And then a person who is able to transcend themselves via belief in that God, Kierkegaard called them, that last stage of existence, the night of faith. You've probably heard the term playing out of your mind, right? So this is playing outside the Platonic concept of a mind that exists beyond all things and all logic. However, I found in one of Kierkegaard's secret journals a stage beyond the night of faith, that being the Trishul subscriber, as that you have theoretically infinite high-quality anime and manga content. How would Kierkegaard know who I, or what YouTube was, or what a subscriber was? Sounds like you guys forgot the part about casting aside logic. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and if I do, I will drop an hour-long geyser analysis for y'all gentlemen. Right, now that we've examined the fundamental nature of the human condition, let's go back to the football soccer comic. After the Barca match, everyone is talking about how they're going to try and enter the starting lineup, with Isagi having been put part of it from the beginning, basically because he's the main character and he was scoring the U20 match. This doesn't stop Yukimiya though from being a D1 hater. Yukimiya's most notable trait at this point is his unflinching adherence to his ideals. Maybe more than anyone so far, rivaled only really by Barou and like flashback Kaiser, but he was like not really, he doesn't count, okay? But basically, he is going to die on this hill. He wants not only to be the best striker in the world, but he's going to act like it all the way there. Not only that, but Yukimiya's unwavering resolve is the result of his faith in God, or maybe more specifically, his faith in the concept that everything that's happening to him is ultimately for the better as part of God's plan. This is then meant to contrast Isagi's ability to adapt and change, sort of like a counter fighter or switch hitter, I think they're called, versus a slugger. I don't really know. My only boxing experience is I watched the Rocky movies once each. Now, in my objectively correct opinion, this is meant to be an allusion to the Night of Faith. The repetition of the concept of faith, all the allusions to God during the match and before it and after it, casting aside logic, the British being here, they're the night guys, right? It's in the dictionary, man! Now, at the same time, Yukimiya is dominated by his jealousy and hatred towards Isagi, as well as his own self-doubts as to whether or not he'll be able to succeed in the NEL. Things that, one could argue, exist purely within the realm of human worldly concern. This is accounted for in Kierkegaard's ideas. The Knight of Faith isn't perpetually in this superhuman state. Rather, he is thought to ground himself in his faith every so often. He exists not before or during the leap of faith, but rather in the moment after landing. Now, this very same concept is discussed by Chris Prince later on, grounding yourself in your ideals, or as he put it, turning to your ideal self in times of doubt or when you don't feel your best or when you don't match up to your ideals. I just feel as though there's too many connections here for this just to be a coincidence. This isn't a sans is nest situation, okay? However, even if Kierkegaard thought about this, I do believe that this is Kaneshro's first of many criticisms of Kierkegaard. That is, it's a bit of a stopgap measure, isn't it? Yukimiya's doubts won't vanish, which I believe is represented by his eye disease. No matter how much he does, no matter how much he believes, he will ultimately go blind. It doesn't really truly solve the problem, does it? Now, after this, Yukimiya sort of just like vanishes from the story for like 20 chapters. Bro thinks he's Akari. But luckily for me, that doesn't mean the theme is dropped completely. Specifically, it's continued by our main character, being almost the antithesis of the Knight of Faith. During the match, Isagi is able to further evolve by copying Kaiser and obtaining metavision. Up until this point in the NAL, you could argue the arc is about transcendence, from the mortal realm to the divine realm. The masters are referred to directly as gods or have godlike traits, and it's about evolving your ego to include higher concepts from each team. Freedom, logic, or ideals. Non-corporeal stuff. You can't touch logic or ideal, it's something that exists beyond us. And most importantly, we've got metavision, which effectively gives Isagi a godlike vision, a fourth dimensional vision, something outside this realm. Now, how does this make Isagi Kierkegaard's boogeyman, the guy hiding in the closet for him? Well, you could say Yukimiya cut through the noise of life by placing his faith in God and in his own ideals. Isagi does the exact same thing, but now it's him in God's place. Additionally, we have Man City's philosophy centering around the concept of ideals, trying to actualize the perfect situation for you to excel, as demonstrated by Chiguri's 44-degree Panther Snipe. And we have Kaiser's philosophy of literally everyone else on the field helping him get in the position to be the coolest motherfucker to ever exist. This panel is the definition of aura. But basically, this match is a battle of who will be able to be the best to bring about their ideal. Who can Knight of Faithy the most? And of course the answer was, none of them. What it was that did it was Ryo and Nagi's combined work, creating something beyond even their own imagination, beyond logic, beyond everything. See, I told you that fourth one would come up eventually. Because Kaneshro uses his idea to show Kierkegaard's maybe his greatest flaw, and that is the extreme isolation of the Knight of Faith. And perhaps from that, Kaneshro may unironically create the stage of existence that is even beyond my subscribers. So after Nagi's ultra super mega goal and Yukimiya's failed attempt at scoring, Isagi obviously tries to get Yukimiya to join his side, because otherwise they're gonna fucking lose. However, the very same ideals that propelled Yukimiya this far is also what will now isolate him. So far, Yukimiya has always been the 1v1 emperor, and he does try and go for that here. The mantra of God never gives us more than we can handle, repeating over and over in his head, trying to desperately push down his own doubts.
But, of course, he can't win on his own. It's just impossible. And as you remember, Yukimiya was only able to believe in himself because of his faith in God. But it's just a fact of human nature that you're gonna lose faith in something if you stop seeing results from it. But that faith is all Yukimiya has. And, well, now he would lose faith in himself, but he's unable to do so, putting him in this terrible limbo state, somewhat similar to that unawakened we discussed earlier. Now, when Kierkegaard came up with the concept of the Knight of Faith, he was especially inspired by the story of Abraham, So, basically, Kierkegaard realized that Abraham was able to transcend his normal abilities, as well as the laws of society, and even the laws of God, via faith in God, when he was going to kill his own son Isaac. And that's all well and good, but only Abraham could have done that. No one else could cast aside that logic for God's case, because God commanded him to do it, and him alone. If anyone else murdered a kid, they just go to hell, obviously. Don't do child murder for the sake of enlightenment, kids. Now, the God Kierkegaard spoke of was not a Christian God, or a Muslim God, or whatever, at least not specifically. He was talking about a personal relationship with a higher being. So, while he himself was a Christian, the concept didn't need a Christian God to work, it just needed a God. But emphasis on the personal there. If Isagi became a born-again Christian in the middle of the match, Jesus just descended from heaven and came up to him and explained to Isagi the exact same philosophy Yukimiya had, even then, he would not have the same ideals that Yukimiya had, the same dream, because their relationship in God is personal, and they are simply different people with different personal experiences that have shaped who they are. For the same reason, I have said Risagi 3 times now, instead of reason Isagi. I'm leaving it at this point, I can't. Look, basically, Isagi is also somewhat isolated with his metavision. It's a world for him and him alone. While he can use others in it, like Corona, it's a moon orbiting a planet. It's not fully united, only one following the other. That's a direct contrast to Reo and Nagi, who for their brief super goal were seemingly totally in sync, mutually. They had been able to fully unite their dream. This brings us to the final realization of the match. Egocentrism, or I honestly kind of forgot. In a sense, it's a way for Isagi, and hopefully us the reader, to be able to understand and unify with the dreams and ideals of others. While Isagi may be overwhelmed on his own when he places himself as God, because obviously he's not God, and he was foolish to consider himself as such, but when his coach Noah is able to understand and assist with Isagi's dreams, more paths open up so that he can place his faith into them without sacrificing logic and reason, nor drop his ideals. This is the formula that Isagi is able to use to transcend both Reo and Nagi's super goal, as well as the Knight of Faith. Isagi placed his faith into Yukimiya in order to make a decision that even the hyper-logical genius Kaiser couldn't read with his fourth-dimensional vision, and likewise, said faith and unity of dreams was able to let Yukimiya have faith in himself without having to resort to delusion. It is a compromise between the logical and illogical. It's a combination of faith in yourself, ideals, and others that allows Yukimiya and Isagi to cut through the noise, so to speak. Which is why it's fitting that Yukimiya's final goal was imagery of a piercing sword. I don't really know how to finish that. That's kind of the end of the video. I started a Discord server. If you want to join, DM me. The Discord handle's in the YouTube description. Like and subscribe. Comment why you think that Kaiser is really hot. I don't know. Bye.